The late Nigerian president Umaru Musa Yaradua died on the 5th of May 2010 at Aso Rock Presidential Villa in Abuja following a long illness. But he may have still be alive today if not for a slight political mistake made by the handlers of the president. Let me explain why I say so. In 2009, the president was flown out of the country to Saudi Arabia for treatment after falling seriously ill. But as time goes on, there in Saudi Arabia, he spent days and weeks receiving treatment. The country was later thrown into confusion as Nigerians begin to wonder why their president is not yet back. At this time, a lot was already going on in the country that need the president's attention. Documents needed to be signed and some decisions needed to be taken, but the president was not available. So, Nigerians begin to call for the president to transmit power to the vice president, Goodluck Jonathan, as required of him by the constitution since he was yet to recover. After going back and forth about this decision, and the call for the president to transmit power was becoming louder by the day, the then Senate President, David Mark, decided to hold a meeting with some of his colleagues and others. A decision was then taken to hand over power to the Vice President, Goodluck Jonathan, as acting president. Goodluck Jonathan began to pilot the affairs of the country. But this seems not to sit well with the handlers of the president, who maybe were scared that Yaradua's presidency may be taken away from him. Not long after power was handed over to Goodluck Jonathan, the handlers of President Yaradua decided to return him back to Nigeria, even though his condition was not improving at all. But they never knew that this decision was the beginning of the end. And then one day, President Yaradua was flown back to Nigeria in the middle of the night when Nigerians were sleeping, maybe in a bid to hide him away from public. But unknown to them, some media houses have already gotten information that the president will be flown back that night. Hidden cameras were everywhere as the president was taken from the presidential jet into the ambulance, then to Aso Rock. Some Nigerians that were awake that night were all watching this event live on television. To cut the long story short, President Yaradua began to receive treatment at Aso Rock, but his condition was getting worse every day, to an extent that some Nigerians were calling for the president to resign. At this point, there were confusion everywhere in the country as other people began to question why the president was flown back to the country, even though he was not fully recovered. And then, on the 5th of May 2010, at about 8:40 p.m., according to report, the president gave up the ghost. The second day, his body was taken to his hometown in Katsina for burial. And that brought to an end the era of one of the most loved presidents in Nigeria. Who knows, maybe he would have survived if they had allowed him to continue receiving treatment in Saudi Arabia.